Welcome, everyone, to Time Warp 1982 40th anniversary. We are discussing the movies and pop culture of May and June of 1982. This is part 3. In the special edition of Time Warp, we're going to also cover all of the fandom in it. And we're really excited because we want to take you back in time to 1982. Not just the movies. That's the main topic, of course. But we want to kind of take you during that specific time when these movies were coming out and share all of the music and the TV and what you were watching and listening to, and also what was happening around the world. And like I said, in this episode, part 3 of Time Warp 1982, all celebrating its 40th anniversary. We're talking in the months of May and June. My name is Kevin. I'm going to be your host. I'd like to introduce my guest for this time travel journey back to 1982. With me, as always, is my brother from another mother, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's up, dude?
I'm good. I only have a few comments about this podcast. First of all, dead meat. Con! And the sun will come out tomorrow.
The sun
finally, they're here.
Tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar tomorrow.
They were here, now they just left.
I have thoughts about that movie. I have lots of thoughts. Now, we had Lacee, but she's going to come back. Lacee, of course, Aderhold, our queen of movie kung fu. Just waiting for her to come back. But usually, Kyle, what we do is we talk about the movies that we were going to watch from the last episode. But I don't know if we just kind of forgot. Or as I'm finding out, there's certain things, Kyle, that are hard to find, either streaming, other methods, DVDs too expensive and out of print. Some are hard to find, dude.
Kevin, are you basically saying on these particular movies we can't buy them, can't see them, or we can't buy them, we can't stream them, and we can't unsee them?
Something like that. Yes, something like that. I mean, it's we can find so much for DVDs and Blu-rays. Some are just out of print and really expensive. You can find them, but it's like, do you really want to, take a chance and spend sometimes up to $80 and such like that? So, Kyle, send a message to Lacee, see if we can get her back on. I don't know if she knows to come back on or not. She might be having an issue or not. But as we go forward here, we don't have anything that we've watched from the last, I guess it's the last episode. I know Lacee, I think she wanted to talk about Parasite because that was the Demi Moore horror film that she was in, and it supposedly had taken place in 1992, like 10 years later. So she didn't get a chance to watch it, but that's okay. First, though, oh wait, is that her? Did we get her back? I think we got her back.
Not yet.
She's trying.
It's like she's trying to come through the TV to us, Kevin.
I know, right? Yeah, it's not. I think she's using 1982 technology, which at the time was booming. It was just larger.
Is it 1982 or is it 2019 technology that she's using?
This is true. That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah. But what's interesting, though, I do let the listeners and the people that are watching as well, because this is on YouTube, and we're going to have some visual aids, just like we have right here, Time Warp 1982. We're going to be putting up some pictures of movies that we're going to be talking about. And we have Lacee. What's up, Lacee?
Hello. I was going to do like a flash, like an 80s entrance, and then you were like, nope, sorry, you get nothing.
Wait, Lacee, let's be honest. You fed the computer after midnight, right?
Yeah.
He was peckish. He was peckish after midnight. He was snacky.
I had just explained, Lacee, that you had tried to watch Parasite, but you didn't get to it. And I was mentioning to Kyle that there's just some stuff we couldn't find, or it was just too expensive to try to purchase, and because it wasn't streaming. So,
Yeah.
So we're going to forego that part real quick. But anyway, Lacee, welcome to Time Warp 1982. Glad to have you back.
Hands.
Yes, the queen of movie kung fu. So I say, guys, we get right into it here. Here we go. Here, ready? Let's take a step back into time to 1980. Slingshot around the sun aboard that captured bird of prey. take a step into that blue police box or phone booth. Step into that quantum leap accelerator, or take a dip in that hot tub time machine as we travel back to 1982. We're going to remind you what was happening, pop culture, sports, politics, television, and of course the movies of 1982. All right, guys, I always like to do the average cost of things. And we keep saying it every episode, so why not say it again? Average tank of gas was 91 cents. But we've got a loaf of white sliced bread was 50 cents. The Commodore VIC Computer 20 was $300. And if you wanted an early satellite receiver, it's going to cost you $245.95 on average. Kyle, did you have a satellite receiver?
No, satellite dishes did not serve well in Alaska because of snow.
Just be honest, you guys. No, just be honest. You guys were using them to try and contact flying saucers. That's what you were really trying to do for.
No. See, what we tried to do was we tried to bounce it off the Aurora Borealis, but the signals, and next thing you know, it opens up these other dimensions and things start popping out.
Or you were trying to communicate with all of the Russian gypsy vampires that were ready to come over on 30 Days of Night. It's one of those.
I just watched them from my front porch. I don't know what you're talking about, Kevin.
Oh, is that Lacey?
I was going to say that the vampires disabled all of the communication, so putting it up is not going to matter.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah, you guys have seen. I have told you how many times 28 Days Later is an actual documentary film.
Yeah.
Or 30 days
I'm sorry, 30 Days of Night. 30 Days of Night.
Okay, moving on, guys. 1982. All right, we've got some news here we want to talk about. May 1st, a crowd of over 100,000 attend the first day of the 1982's World Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee. The fair is kicked off with an address by President Ronald Reagan. Over 11 million people attended the fair during its 6-month run. They don't really do those fairs much anymore. They were like a thing. It was a fair that brought the Eiffel Tower to Paris, and they just decided to keep it, just so you guys know. Weather Channel has begun in the U.S. on May 2nd, and thus putting people to sleep at night. Kyle.
I was just going to say, and thus, to this day, you still don't want to see Jim Cantore show up in your town because bad stuff's about to go down weather-wise.
That's right. It's like when he showed up, you're like, where's the tornado or the tsunami? Indianapolis 500 on May 30th. Donald Davidson and Speedway public addresser announcer Tom Carnegie later called the greatest moment in the track's history. 1973 winner Gordon Johncock wins his second race over 1979 winner Rick Mears by 0.16 seconds, the closest finish to that date after Mears draws alongside Johncock with a lap remaining after erasing a seemingly insurmountable advantage of more than 11 seconds in the final 10 laps. Jordan Johncock. That name is funny.
Gordon,
not Jordan. Gordon.
I got tongue-tied saying Gordon Johncock. Fine, I messed that up. I don't care. All right, guys, let's move to June. Steven Spielberg and Tobe Hooper's horror film collaboration Poltergeist is released. We'll discuss that shortly. June 8th, President Ronald Reagan becomes the first American chief executive to address a joint session of the British Parliament. Did he have to wear the wig?
No.
I would have made him wear the wig. I'm just saying. A rally against nuclear weapons, June 12th, draws 750,000 to New York City Central Park. Jackson Browne, James Taylor, Bruce Springsteen, and Linda Ronstadt attend. International convocation at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine features prominent peace activists from around the world, and afterward participants march on Fifth Avenue to Central Park for the rally. June 19th, murder of Vincent Chen. Vincent Chen, a 27-year-old Chinese American, is beaten unconscious by 2 white auto workers in Highland Park, Michigan, who think he's Japanese and the cause of the declining prosperity of the American auto industry. He dies 4 years later. Sad.
4 days.
4 days.
Wow.
Is it 4? Oh, I'm sorry. God, guys, I am just off my rock right here. All right. 4 days later. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember that happening, but interesting about the American auto industry. I do remember that happening.
I was 9, so that was probably shielded from me on the news.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wonder if that was addressed in Gung Ho, wasn't it, Kyle?
I think so. I think it was brought up at one point. The violence towards the Asians at that time because of how the American auto workers felt.
June 25th, the Institute of Puerto Rican Policy is founded in New York City to research and advocate for Puerto Rican and Latino community issues. In 2006, it's changed its name to the National Institute of Latino Policy. All right, guys, we're going to get into some technology. Lacey? Lacey, do you know what that is? That picture right there? That is a stick from the Genesis Effect. ILM produces the Genesis Effect for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Features one of the most groundbreaking segments in the history of early computer graphics. The Genesis Effect, portraying the rebirth of a barren planet. Computer graphics group of Lucasfilm created the sequences, basing it partly on the simulation of satellite flybys done by Jim Blinn of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Pretty cool. I remember seeing that. That was a big deal. Also, Jenny Strazisar, if I'm saying her name correctly. Here's a picture of her in front of some rocks. Is that the set of I think that's the set of a certain rockumentary movie behind her. The Stonehenge. No, that's really Stonehenge. She is from BBN, author of the first TCP/IP router, interneting as business, networking in the web. Is that the thing? Is that the thing they mentioned in that Mike Judge movie, Office Space? The thing that they get so mad at?
TPS reports.
Yeah.
TPS.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, Mike Judge was mad at Stonehenge? I'm so confused. Nope,
But congratulations though to Jenny, and great picture there at Stonehenge. So yeah, there you go. All right, guys, we love tech. We love early tech. We've got some for you here. The Entertainment Computer System. Now, this thing looked pretty cool, Kyle. It looks like you got your keyboard with the cord, and it looks like you got some handheld type of early controllers with some rudimentary like touch pads. Thoughts on this? Do you know? You had this, didn't you?
I did not have this, but if you look in the picture that's up on the screen for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the name Intellivision on this thing. This would be modified later. That white part with the two little controllers with the disc would eventually be sold by itself as the Intellivision video game system. Probably the closest thing to competition for the Atari 2600 at the time.
Yeah, good point.
Right on.
Now, we all loved our video games, coin-operated video games, and of course, they had to have the home versions. And there we have Entex Adventure Vision. Never had this, but I'm sure it was just a couple of dots going back and forth and making some noises, Kyle.
Yeah. What's funny is it wasn't that much far, maybe about 3 or 4 years later when we started getting those little, like, tiny tabletop versions of games that were very pixelated and
that's coming up later.
Yeah, I know. This is an early setup of this.
Okay, chocolates. The Ferrero Rocher or Rocher.
Ferrero Rocher.
Thank you for correcting my.
C'est français.
Thank you so much. Say it again, real quick.
Ferrero Rocher.
These seem to be everywhere. We're giving as gifts. You got them from Grandma, but boy, they were yummy. But sometimes you weren't sure what was inside because they varied. Lacey, were you a fan of these?
For me, it was always a hazelnut. It was hazelnut and chocolate ganache, and then a hard coating with the nuts on the outside. I've never had one that had something different in it. That sounds delicious, and now I have to go investigate further.
I'll add that gold wrapper around them, and they looked really, really fancy. So yeah,
nice.
We also had some more tech. We had the grid, a grid compass. Ooh, that looks fancy. I wonder if any special forces had that. We also had the HP 75 super calculator, I guess. Boy, nerds had those, and that was just like asking to get your ass kicked if you pulled one of those out. I'm just saying, especially during this time.
I feel like one of those was on my dad's desk at some point. Like, I feel like definitely, yeah.
We had IntelliVoice. Guessing that wasn't an answering machine, Kyle, was it?
No, the IntelliVoice was an add-on to the Intellivision system where you plugged it in, and there were certain games designed for the IntelliVoice, and it was the first, at the time, video game system to actually incorporate digital computer voice in it.
Voice command?
Not voice command, no. Just hearing actual voice in it. But what I remember about this is a friend of mine had an Intellivision, and he got this, and one of the games that was out for it was B-17 Bomber. But the IntelliVoice sounded a lot like Gomer Pyle, so it was like, B-17 Bomber.
All right, guys. We had a lot of wars happening. We had the Cold War. We had the Space War, Star Wars. Hey, we also had the Cola Wars. Like cola. Old school can. Remember this?
No.
99% caffeine free. And it was produced by the 7-Up company. Lacey.
Never heard of this.
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And in 1982, Atlanta, Georgia, you could not find, there was nothing but Coca-Cola. You could not find anything that was not Coca-Cola products. This was Atlanta. So
isn't that still the same basically today?
No, actually, I went to the movies yesterday and they were like, we only have Pepsi products. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I didn't mean to. I said it out loud and I was like, oh, I am so sorry for saying it.
During commercials,
like cola
commercials, we had some people that were, featuring it, like Tim Conway and actor Kevin Dobson. They were spokespersons. So yeah, it was an early version of 7-Up brand from the 60s too, and 7-Up's Diet Lemon Lime Soda. But they had a cola that came out later. But that's very hard to find.
Because 7-Up was bought by Pepsi, right?
I believe so.
Coke had Sprite and Dr. Pepper. I mean, so.
Hell, bring back the light cola. You got Joe Cola still around. Bring back the light cola. See how that tasted.
Wow.
It was always RC Cola for me if it wasn't Coke or Pepsi.
RC's good stuff. Yeah. Kyle, we got some toys next, and we have to discuss.
No. Not some toys. One of the toys.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so the first thing I have here is Eagle Force. Die-cast metal, posable action figures, America's premier strike force to fight worldwide injustice and tyranny. And this is Captain Eagle, the leader on the left, in gold. Plus, Eagle Force comics and weapon details on back. And not only that, he had a weapon and he had an eagle. He had an eagle, Kyle.
He might have had it. Yeah. He might have had an eagle. But I will take a highly trained special missions force determined to prevent Cobra from ruling the world.
That's G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Snake Eyes hits in January of 1982 by Hasbro. I remember getting one of these Eagle Force ones, guys. It was die-cast metal, and they were a little bit shorter. So if you had them fight your G.I. Joes, not only did your G.I. Joes were more light and can move around, they didn't rust.
Oh my gosh.
The impression I kind of get is if the Eagle Force fought the G.I. Joes size comparison, it would be like It would be like soldiers versus Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, pretty much. And what's funny is these pictures I have, there's old stickers on these. One's for, they started out as $2.37, and there's a sale price of 99 cents on the Eagle Force guy. And then for G.I. Joe, you had to pay $3.68 for it. That thing right now would probably be worth over $1,000.
I'm several thousand for that particular one, especially if it's boxed and
Lacey.
evaled. Yeah.
I vividly remember one of the boys that I hung out with when I was that age had this G.I. Joe Snake Eyes. And I would always, he would get so upset with me when I'd say, well, don't forget his purse, because the Uzi, I was like 9. Like,
it's a demolition pack. It's with bombs inside of it, Lacey.
It's a satchel.
It's not a purse.
It looked like a purse. Oh, it's in it. I know it says very clearly Uzi gun explosives pack. Until this very moment, I did not know that that was an Uzi gun explosives pack. I knew
you
that
could have
it was,
at least called it a man bag. Come on.
well, it was 1980. It was 1982. Zach Galifianakis was not in my vernacular yet.
It's true.
You
It was
do
a
realize
purse.
Snake Eyes had never had that particular accessory ever again.
Kyle says he still has this. The glowworm.
Every night, man. It keeps me warm at night.
Also, the magic wand speak and learn. These are pretty cool. I had this, guys. Check this out. Oh, yeah. Matchbox. Matchbox collection. This is a 20-car set. Includes Porsche, Turbo, Bigfoot, 4x4, Camper, Red Ryder, Tyrone Malone, Super Boss, S2 Jet, Peterbilt Conventional, Baja Bouncer, Sunburner, Cosmic Blues, 33 Wheelie Street Rod, Tyrone Malone Bandit, Dag Bandit, Bird, plus 8 more. And then, of course, there was the Tyco Super Double Looper Dirt Bike Race Set. Oh, so good. So good. I had to be careful. I remember not asking for anything flexible for racing because they were just extra things to spank me with.
So with these slot tracks, Kevin, with these loops, and then later on there was one that shot up the wall. What was your average? Would you say it's about a 2 out of 10 times that the slot would actually go through the loop properly?
Yeah, and then after a while, it was like done.
Yeah, it just go flying in some other direction.
Yes, yeah, pretty much. All right, guys, a couple more here. We have the Muppets coloring plates by Crayola, price $8.99. Rubbing plate holder lets you mix or match rubbing plates to create and dress up your favorite Muppet characters, ready for coloring. And we had My Huggable Rag Doll for $5. She's really softy and so much fun to hug. Dressed in a charming flower print dress, she has big expressive eyes and eyelashes. She's freckled faced charmer with her long blonde braids that hang out from her floppy hat. Such a cute picture too.
You still have yours, don't you?
Any of these toys? Like, I did not have a single one of these toys.
Yes, Kyle, it's next to Alf. Got it hanging over there in the window, freaking people out. There we go. All right, guys, let's go to the next fun thing here we like to do. Music news. Pop goes wild. 1982 pop music. We got some news here. The Clash drummer Topper Headon is fired from the band when his heroin addiction becomes too prevalent. Yep. May 18, 3 weeks after disappearing, Joe Strummer and his girlfriend are found living in Paris 2 days after they ran the Paris Marathon. May 24th. What?
It just sounds like they went on vacation and didn't tell anybody. Like, y'all, come on.
Yeah, I'm going to guess drugs were involved. Just throwing that out there. Just saying. Here we go, guys. Check this out. Queen releases on May 21st, 1982, their 10th studio album, Hot Space, to immense critical outcry. The decision to make a dance pop album with prominent disco influences at the height of American backlash against the latter genre renders the band a pariah in the United States, and their shift from traditional rock alienates their fans in the United Kingdom. Queen, of course, would not recover from this resulting backlash in the UK until their Live Aid performance in 1985, while they would remain unpopular in the United States until after Freddie Mercury's death in 1991. I'm going to disagree with that last part there. They were very popular for a long time. I guess that album, I guess, Kyle, they just, people weird, like, nope, we're not going to recognize it.
I don't remember that backlash being mentioned in Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm just saying.
I know, right? Yeah. May 23rd, Pink Floyd, The Wall, a film adaptation of Pink Floyd's 1997 album. The Wall premieres at the Cannes Films Festival. The film's wide release would begin on July 15th. June 1982, June 16th, James Honeyman Scott, founding member of the band The Pretenders, dies of heart failure because of cocaine intolerance. He was only 25 years old. And June 19th, baby, Amy Grant marries Gary Chapman. Lacey, comment?
I'm just trying to figure out how much cocaine one person has to do to die of a heart failure at 25. Like, that's a lot of cocaine, y'all.
There was heart condition already there.
I mean, goodness.
Yeah, I'm guessing probably a chronic smoker too, is what I'm guessing. So yeah.
Well, but even chronic smoking at 25, he would have had to start when he was 10.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
All right, guys, that fun part that we like to do is we like to visit the top Billboard 100 of 1982, and we like to pick about 20 at a time. And we got some interesting ones here. We're going to be covering 61 down through 41, starting with 61, 100 Ways by Quincy Jones featuring James Ingram. Personally by Carla Bonoff. 59, Love is in Control, Finger on the Trigger by Donna Summer. 58, Think I'm in Love by Eddie Money. 57, Wasted on the Way by Crosby, Stills, and Nash. 56, Hooked on Classics by Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. 55, Love in the First Degree by Alabama. 54, Why Do Fools Fall in Love by Diana Ross. 53, Caught Up in You by 38 Special. Cool Night at 52 by Paul Davis. 51, Do You Believe in Love? Huey Lewis and the News. 50, Keep the Fire Burning by REO Speedwagon. 49, Freeze Frame, the J. Giles Band. 48, Young Turks by Rod Stewart. 47, Love's Been a Little Bit Hard on Me by Juice Newton. 46, Making Love by Roberta Flack. 45, Trouble by Lindsey Buckingham. 44, Private Eyes by Hall & Oates. 43, That Girl, Stevie Wonder. 42, Pac-Man Fever by Buckner and Garcia. And 41, Take It Easy on Me, Little River Band. Lacey, give me a couple here that you are still jamming to and you love.
I would like to say that I still have Hall & Oates in my phone.
You told me about that last time.
It is awesome and hilarious. And anytime you feel the need for a little bit of Hall & Oates, you just call this little number and you can get a little bit of
Please
in your
mention
ear.
the number one more time.
Okay, yes. The number is 719. I don't know where that is. 266-2837. So.
All right. So there's a couple of Hall & Oates songs on here. You going to talk about those?
I loved Private Eyes, but I would say probably Love in the First Degree is the one. If I had to pick one out of this set that I remember the most, it would definitely be Love in the First Degree.
Nice.
I'm a huge country nerd anyway, so
that's a good song. Kyle, got a couple here that are freeze framing you.
Oh, there's a few, but just to echo what Lacey said, I remember Love in the First Degree was one of those country songs that just broke through on all the charts. It was constantly getting played, but I was more busy getting Caught Up in You, Little Girl, with a little 38 Special.
But great song too.
Yeah, you got to feel the freeze frame. I mean, freeze frame.
Two-hit wonder, freeze frame, and what was the other one? Another one they did.
Wasn't freeze frame used in like a
centerfold?
Oh, yeah, centerfold. That's right.
Wasn't freeze frame used in some sort of like commercial, I don't remember what it was, but I feel like I don't know that I ever actually heard the whole song. I just remember like the 20-second clip from the commercial, and I don't know what commercial it was.
You're possibly right, Kyle.
Yeah, I just want to wrap it up because the Private Eyes were always watching me because I had that Pac-Man fever and it was driving me crazy.
I see what you did there. Yeah, Pac-Man fever. It hasn't aged well like some of these other ones, of course, like Private Eyes. And I just recently kind of rediscovered Love's Been a Little Hard on Me by Juice Newton because I always remember Betty Davis Eyes as her big hit. But I was listening to that song and I watched that video. I'm like, that's a pretty good song, Juice. You go. 2 hits. Nice. Didn't know. So yeah. What else we got? Do You Believe in Love? Huey Lewis. Very nice. Yeah. Caught Up in You. That one's just. I've been hearing that one a lot lately. Good tunes. What
about Why Do Fools Fall in Love? I remember the first time I heard that was probably in Parenthood, the movie Parenthood.
Yeah.
When Rick Moranis sang it, was that?
I can't remember.
I don't know. No, he sang the bird one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My bad. Okay. Just kidding.
All right, guys, let's get into some movie here, or excuse me, TV stuff. But we do have a couple little things here. So we're going to talk about it. But E.T. was released, and it will become up to that date the highest grossing film of all time. And that's because it probably played for like a year in the theaters, which isn't done anymore. But the Coca-Cola Company acquires Columbia Pictures for $750 million on June 22nd, 1982. That seems like a deal now. I'm just saying. But guys, we have the top rated films from 1982, and we talk about 5 at a time. And the 5 that we're going to talk about at number 20, Knots Landing, 19, Trapper John, 18, Gloria, 17, Heart to Heart, and 16, One Day at a Time. Lacey, which one were you watching?
My grandparents' house during the summers, we would watch MASH and Trapper John. And then Heart to Heart was the one that we never missed. Heart to Heart was every single, yes. I think I've seen every single Heart to Heart episode 40 times. Just, yeah. It was always Heart to Heart.
Kyle.
Heart to Heart was big. Trapper John with the MASH spinoff, but come on, Kevin. This answer should be the same for both me and you because it was all about One Day at a Time because you needed that Valerie Bertinelli fix One Day at a Time.
Yeah.
America's sweetheart.
1 minute at a time. Sometimes 5 minutes at a time.
Gentlemen.
Sorry, where was I? I forgot. But yes, Kyle, you're right. You're right. I forgot what Gloria was, and that is a spinoff from All in the Family and Sally Struthers and her show. Sorry, I was the only non-MASH fan in the family. I was not watching Trapper John. I never watched Knots Landing. I always kind of wanted to watch Heart, but never got around to it. Never did. But One Day at a Time, that was my jam. We
on the Schneider. You have some Schneider vibes to you, Kevin.
Schneider was funny. I like Schneider. He knew what was going on. And yes, I think he was getting around. I'm just saying.
Well, he told everybody every chance he got. Goodness gracious.
And he spent a lot of time around there. Just saying. All right. We have some TV debuting during this time of the year. May 9th, miniseries Inside the Third Reich, ABC miniseries, starring Rutger Hauer, John Gielgud. Never got around to watching this, but it is a drama about the life of Albert Speer, played by Rutger Hauer. Man, I got to find this. I like that. We also have TV debuting at this time in May. We have The Book of Lists. Now, guys, I looked this up, and there's not much on it, but Bill Bixby is in it. And I don't think it lasted very long, but I did come across a Wikipedia. And the Book of Lists refers to any one of a series of books compiled by David, how do you say his last name? Walachinsky, and his father Irving Wallace and sister Amy Wallace. Each book contains hundreds of lists, many accompanied by textual explanations on unusual, obscure topics. For example, famous people who died during sexual intercourse, the world's greatest libel suits, people suspected of being Jack the Ripper, worst places to hitchhike, Dr. Demento's 10 worst song titles of all time, people misquoted by Ronald Reagan, breeds of dogs which bite people the most and the least. So I'm wondering if this Bill Bixby show went over those topics and then they just canceled it right away. Because I even tried to find it on YouTube. I couldn't find it. Lacey?
It was a single episode outing. They did a pilot and they never picked it up. If you look up on IMDb and actually go into the episodes, it offers one and it just says the pilot and there's no actual video for it.
Well, I'm guessing he wanted another job because shows that were ending at this time, May 12th, The Incredible Hulk, which started in 1977. So maybe he's like, I need a new job. Oh, that Book of Lists. Let's do that. Nope. Damn it. May 20th.
Kevin, there's a world where Bill Bixby is still walking down a highway with that music playing.
It's true. He's walking the earth like Kane from Kung Fu. Yeah, That's what he's doing. May 20th, Barney Miller finally says goodbye. Started in 1975. May 21st, a TV show called Strike Force, which started in 81, apparently only lasted one season. So they Struck the Force? Strike Force?
Struck it
down. They struck down the Strike Force.
And Nanu says goodbye, May 27th, Mork and Mindy, which started in 1978. Probably because Mork was making movies. We'll get back to that later.
That was because of there was a murder, right? It was this big stalking case. The murder?
No, that was My
Pam
Sister
Dauber's next
Sam.
Oh, My Sister Sam.
Yeah, which was later with Pam Dauber. That was later.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was Pam Dauber. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. Bosom Buddies, Tom Hanks, Peter Scolari ended, which started in 1980.
That Tom Hanks guy, he went places, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Kind of famous. I think he won some awards. Pretty sure.
Yeah, something like that.
I
know I've heard the name.
Lacey?
He collects typewriters.
Yeah.
I think he got famous for that. Like that's what.
That's right.
He was famous for that.
We had some we had some famous births in 1982 during May and June. May 1st, Jamie Dornan. He's a Northern Irish actor that's lately shown some nudity.
No.
Rebecca.
Really?
Yeah. May 3rd. Hold on.
Yes.
You know you've seen him. You've seen the 50
I've
Shades.
seen 50 Shades of Grey, but he was not nude in this. I mean, it was mostly her.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a very non
not fair.
Not balanced in that film.
Rebecca Hall, born May 3rd. Jonathan Jackson, born May 11th. Jewel State. Firefly. Haley. Oh, Haley.
Kaylee, not Haley.
Oh, it's Kaylee. That's right, Kaylee.
Just
Kaylee.
If you just find the engine room. That's all I'm gonna say. Find the engine room.
Where was I? Oh yeah, June 22nd, Benjamin Walker. This guy's not aging well. June 21st, Jesse Smollett. Got in some trouble recently. June 29th, Matthew Mercer. And June 30th, Lizzie Kaplan.
Love Lizzie Kaplan.
Me too. Big fan of hers.
Mm-hmm. Benjamin Walker's awesome. I really want him and Liam Neeson to play father and son at some point.
Remind me who Benjamin Walker is.
Abraham Lincoln, vampire killer.
Oh, yes.
Just like he was. I mean,
yeah.
When they did the Taken TV show, I was like, "What are you doing? How could you not have that star Benjamin Walker?" It was exactly what they should have done, but they didn't. It's okay.
We had a couple celebrity deaths in June of 1982. Of course, I have a picture of Mr. Randy Rhoads. Gonna always pay tribute to him. He passed away this year. Al Rinker, singer-songwriter, born in 1907, died June 12th. And famous baseball player Satchel Paige passed away June 8th, born in 1906. Lacey? Did you have a comment? I thought you had a comment. That you raised your hand. No? Okay, cool. All right, guys, we have some celebrity film debuts in 1982. We have Michael Hall. Oh, I'm sorry. Anthony Michael Hall was in Six Pack. Talk about that later. Linda Hamilton, Tag, Assassination Game. Dana Hill in Shoot the Moon. C. Thomas Howell in E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Hulk Hogan in Rocky III. And Jet Li in Shaolin Temple. Oh.
Kevin, wait, you got to say it right. That'd be Thunderlips, brother.
Thunderlips, brother. Well, we're getting to that. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the movies of 1982. Boy, we got some good ones to do, guys. All right. Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our Fandom Flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. the True Believers MCU podcast discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe, Union Federation, our Star Trek, and the Orville Show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom. All right, guys, welcome back to Time Warp 1982, Part 3. We got some stuff to talk about. May and June. Guys, we got a cutting room forward segment, just want to mention. There is some movies that we call that made it to the cutting room floor, and we'll tell you that later. Guys, we just don't have time to talk about all of them, and some of them were just kind of like, nah, maybe you feel differently. Let us know. But we do have the cutting room floor. But first, we need to talk about the first film here. It is called Paradise. In the Victorian period, two teenagers, David and Sarah, travel with a caravan from Baghdad to Damascus. At an oasis, the white slave agent known as the Jackal raids them, mainly to add the beautiful young Sarah to his harem. Only David and Sarah narrowly escape, and all the others are slain in the massacre. Their fight leads them to a beautiful oasis, their paradise, where they discover love and sex. Starring Willie Ames and Phoebe Cates, guys. Lacey, you just bought this. I told you how to get it because I had a copy.
It was so bad. I mean, it was for what it was. I'm sure it was fantastic at the time. But I mean, aside from the fact that whoever shot the film was obsessed with putting Phoebe Cates into waterfalls, which, sure, fine, whatever. It was like such weird stuff. Their wardrobe was the biggest concern for me because, like, he went from fully dressed to wearing like just a vest and no shirt, and then like 10 minutes later he's wearing the shirt with shorts, but he didn't have shorts. It was the strangest thing. There were no animals to be seen except for one camel and two monkeys, and they ended up with all these leather pieces of clothes. Like, there was a lot, man. Like, no.
Kyle, will you do me a favor right now? Will you say, Kevin, can I borrow your copy of Paradise? Just ask me. Go ahead.
Kevin, can I keep your copy of Paradise?
Hell no.
And it's not.
I'm going to be the guy.
Yep.
Okay, so
I'm right there with you.
Phoebe Cates is in this film. Yes, the movie's trash, Lacey. Yes. It's not a good movie.
Was that when they were swimming naked, and for some reason Phoebe Cates was able to swim naked in front of the camera, but for some reason Willie Ames kept swimming through a school of
pixelation.
Of pixels.
Yes.
Like,
no, you're right. Okay, so guys, real quick, I'm just going to say the obvious. We all know Phoebe Cates' famous scene in Fast Times at Richmond High. We'll be discussing that next episode. This is the film she did before. Same year, came out. She's a lot more naked in this, just going to say. It's shot entirely on location somewhere in, like, I don't know, what was it? Gosh, I forgot where.
Turkey, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Turkey. Maybe. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But little trivia, actor Willie Ames had stated in an interview that the love scenes were more explicit in the version that he and Phoebe Cates were shown for approval. During production, Cates and Ames decided the picture did not require the amount of nudity that had been written into the script. And Cates was 17 years of age when she starred in this movie. She did the nude scenes.
Kevin?
Yeah.
Isn't there a song there? She's only 17?
It's 16, 17.
Funny you say song, Kyle. There is a song on the soundtrack called Paradise, and it is actually sung by Phoebe Cates. This takes place, I believe, in the late 1700s, early 1800s, if I remember correctly.
It said,
And yes.
it said 1832 for the
1832.
opening. Yeah.
And yes, actually, Middle East locations in Israel used for this film. Jerusalem and a Turkish mosque near Tel Aviv. The movie's not good, guys, but it's interesting to see the locations. But let's be honest, Phoebe Cates is a lot more naked in this one. But I got to tell you, the scene that we see in Fast Times at Richmond High lends more to the reason why we watched so much. I'm just going to say that. And Kyle, no, you cannot have my copy.
Kevin, is it safe to say that if most people who watch this movie only watch it in short intervals?
Let me just say something seriously. There was something so damn cute about her during this time.
Mm-hmm.
A smirk, her face, the way the hair came around. She was one of the most gorgeous women, like, forever. And I don't know what it is about her and that face and her eyes and her smile. It took us men and boys away, and still do. Just going to say that. All right, I'm done. All right, guys. Next we have is Conan the Barbarian. I actually have it playing here in the studio here, getting caught up on it here. A young boy, Conan, becomes a slave after his parents are killed and the tribe destroyed by a savage warlord and sorcerer, Thulsa Doom. When he grows up, he becomes a fearless, invincible fighter. Set free, he plots revenge against him. Directed by John Milius, of course, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, James Earl Jones, Max von Sydow. Lacey, your thoughts on Conan?
It was good. I saw it. It's kind of a standard for your barbarian fare.
Hold on. Did you just recently watch this for the first time?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just checking.
I've seen it. I was in LA. I was friends with one of the actresses in it, and so there would have been no way for me to get out of Los Angeles without actually have seen it once. But no, I mean, I've seen it. I think that this was kind of the precursor for some of my favorite barbarian movies. I loved Beastmaster. It's like kind of one of my all-time favorites. And I think this kind of paved the way. So yeah.
Well, we'll be discussing Beastmaster on the next episode.
That's
Kyle.
next time, yeah.
Conan.
Obviously, the movie that gave us Arnold. It's a great adaptation of some amazing comics and stories and come on, let's be honest. Without Conan, we don't get the Barbarian twins later on, Kevin.
Yeah.
but I mean, all kidding aside, this I think for most, especially male movie watchers, this is an iconic staple film. It's the machismo, it's the Barbarian, it's Schwarzenegger. It's our introduction to Schwarzenegger, and then you add in the amazing James Earl Jones and Max von Sydow. It's an amazing film with one of the all-time greatest soundtracks as well. Sandahl
Bergman, his co-star, both she and Arnold had to do their own stunts because they couldn't find suitable body doubles. Could be found. Arnold Schwarzenegger had weapons training, martial arts training, and horseback riding lessons from specialists. He trained with an 11-pound broadsword 2 hours a day for 3 months. Each broadsword cost $10,000, and they had to look weathered. Pretty amazing. And when you see this, he is the biggest he has ever been. He was just amazingly huge, and he looked cut. And he also called this, Arnold Schwarzenegger says, this movie was God's gift to his career. Also, great soundtrack too. We might be doing a couch potato theater on this, maybe, Kyle.
Oh, I think that could be happening.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that.
There's rumors.
All right, guys. Next film, I admit, have never seen all the way through, but I've seen other iterations of this film, either in plays when my lovely daughter Camille was performing in it and played Sandy the dog, or just saw other versions of it. But I have never seen the original 1982 version of Annie until 24 hours ago. Can I just tell you what a delight it was? Oh my God. I really enjoyed it. What took me so long? Oh my God. This movie was so much fun. I'll tell you guys, I was really surprised by this. I kind of had my phone handy just in case it was kind of boring. And young actress.
Aileen Quinn.
Yeah. Oh my God. She's just so fun in this. And it was weird seeing Albert Finney like become a nice guy, because I'm used to him playing like, really kind of mean bad guys and stuff like that. Oh my God. Carol Burnett in this. I totally forgot she was in this. That alone, if you told me Carol Burnett and Tim Curry were in this film, I would have seen it a lot sooner. For whatever reason, I never had seen it all the way through. And Bernadette Peters too?
Yep.
The lovely Bernadette Peters.
Yeah. And I did watch the special features on this, and there's a great interview with Aileen Quinn. And it was a interview that was done as she was grown up, and she returned to the original set, and she was telling the story of her getting the audition. It was like, I think like 5,000 to 8,000 kids they saw. But when she finally got hired and she went on this press tour, and she got to meet, the president, Mrs. Reagan, got to meet the Pope, got to meet, I think, Princess Diana. I mean, all these famous people. And this movie was a hit, of course. And Sandy the dog was so cute. Anyway, Lacey, your thoughts on Annie?
I love Annie. I have always loved Annie. That was one of the first out of, everyone's got their first cassettes that they ever bought. The first 2 cassettes I ever owned were for Christmas. I got the soundtrack to Annie and Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. Those are the first 2 cassette tapes that I ever had. I will say that, like, currently, I don't know. I think that the Asp and Punjab would probably be difficult to recreate. I have not seen the update of Annie. So with Jamie Foxx, I have it. I just haven't had a chance yet. So I don't know how they handled that sort of stuff. But
Right.
I loved it. It's all the songs, all the musical, it's some of my favorite stuff.
Kyle, thoughts on Annie?
There was a point when Annie came out and you talked about it, Kevin, that little girl ruled the world. She was everywhere. And it's funny because you see interviews with her now. First of all, she's quite stunning as she's gotten older. She's got some seriously piercing eyes. But besides that, she talks about how she actually kind of lost a lot of jobs because she was contracted for up to like 18 films. So she couldn't take other jobs because of this Annie contract. And if you look at her IMDb, she does The Frog Prince in 1986 and then does nothing again until 2007.
Wow.
But yeah, this movie is, I think this is a timeless film, and I mean, an amazing cast, and it's been a while since I've seen it, so I had actually forgotten some of the people who were in this. But yeah, I mean, Bernadette Peters, Tim Curry, Carol Burnett, Albert Finney. I mean,
don't forget Jeffrey Holder.
Yeah,
Punjab,
I remember him from one of the Bond films. I remember that.
And he did, what was it, the Sprite commercial where he was like, the whole.
Yes. Yeah. And I think he was also in Boomerang with Eddie Murphy as well.
Okay.
And if it would have been any other year, Annie would have probably been the top children's most memorable thing. But unfortunately, something else comes along a little later this year and just blows everything else out of the water.
I believe we'll be discussing that shortly.
The song that they sing at the very end, when they sing Without a Smile, whatever. When Albert Finney was singing, the first time I saw Ewan McGregor smile, I was like, "Is that Albert? That guy's got to be related to Albert Finney." And then when I found out he wasn't, I was like, "Well, they need to play father and son, or younger, older versions of the same character." And then for years I said that, and finally we got Big Fish. But anyway, just saying. That's all.
So a couple of interesting trivia things, and I did want to share a quick little personal story. So Steve Martin was offered the role of Rooster that Tim Curry played, but he turned it down because he would be working alongside Bernadette Peters, and they were breaking up at the time, and he felt it'd be too painful to work with her for several months. But we'll be discussing Steve Martin in just a second. Eileen's Quinn's red curly wig was so itchy that the producers gave her a special comb for scratching her head. I'm sure it was those things you used to buy in the mall, the big thing that would just go up and down and scratch your skull. Oh God, I could use that right now. Actually, those feel so good. And Eileen Quinn rubbed an apple on her face to make Sandy the dog kiss Annie. Real quick, I was talking with my daughter Camille, and Camille, ever since she was really young, she knew she had an interesting name. It's a name you don't hear a lot, and so whenever we would go to the movies, we would look. She would actually read credits to see if she would see her name up there, because she always found the name. She's like, who else is named Camille? Well, as I was watching this movie, there's the scene where Daddy Warbucks buys out Radio City Music Hall because he's a billionaire right there during the Depression. This takes place during the late 30s. He buys it out so he can take Annie to the movies. The movie that is playing is called Camille, starring Greta Garbo. And I was telling Camille that, she's like, "Oh, that's so cool. I kind of want to see it because it sounds really interesting, because she's a Paris woman that is getting the attention from a young guy, and then this older guy who's also like a millionaire, but her health is failing. So it sounds like it's sad, but I kind of want to see it." But I thought that was interesting. I had to share that. So, all right, guys, next film. Speaking of Steve Martin, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. I had never seen this movie before, guys, but I had found it at a thrift store, and I picked it up knowing we were going to talk about it. I have thoughts. Lacey, I'm going to let you go first.
This was one of the more odd Steve Martin movies from that time. I remember kind of being like, what? And I don't think I've seen it since then. I thought I had until I looked, because there's that sort of 3 or 4 year time period where he made like 37 movies.
Yes. Yes.
And I thought I had seen it, and then I went and watched the trailer, and I was like, oh wait, maybe I haven't seen this since then. So I really don't have anything to say about it other than I did not understand what was going on when I was like 9 or 10.
I got thoughts.
Okay.
This movie actually surprised me the most.
Okay.
And I found myself enjoying it for several reasons. First of all, it's a film noir parody. It takes place in the I want to say early 40s. With a detective uncovering a sinister plot. Characters from real noirs appear as scenes from various films that are intercut within the film. It's directed by Carl Reiner. And the movie was initially planned by Steve Martin and Carl Reiner to be a 30s era film titled Depression. After Reiner incorporated some footage of a 30s star intro the movie, he and Martin decided that the entire movie should be done that way. He rewrote it into a mock detective story. So what he's doing, and it's a comedy, by the way.
So is it the Last Action Hero, but with noir instead? Like where he goes in and out of the...
Sort of, yes. He basically... Okay. So they take movies from the time this movie actually takes place in the film noir era, which is in that 40s era, 50s, but this is in the 40s. Mm-hmm. And they take famous people in scenes that were in movies released during that time, and he interacts with them like they're in the same scene. Sure. And I found some trivia that in order to incorporate this, they had to build like 80 sets to match the sets from these films. Cool. And it's quite amazing when you see all of these, and you can tell the difference, but they do a pretty good job because the whole movie's in black and white. But I got to tell you, Steve Martin is so funny and silly and charming in this. And Rachel Ward, who is in this, there's some very funny, like ongoing jokes. Like, she faints and he catches her and he's trying to wake her up, but he's like kind of like adjusting her breasts, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm sorry. I had to catch you when you fell down and I knocked them out of order." And it kind of becomes this ongoing thing. But the funniest thing is like, there's scenes with like, I'm trying to get I got to tell you this, guys, real quick. Okay. So there's some scenes that he gets shot because the famous actors in this movie, like Burt Lancaster, Ray Milland, Barbara Stanwyck, Ava Gardner, Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, Veronica Lake, Cary Grant, Bette Davis, Kirk Douglas, James Cagney, Fred McMurray, Lana Turner. There's some scenes that where guns are fired and he gets shot in the same part of his arm each time. And he's having to go back to his office, and his co-star, Rachel Ward, is having to suck the bullet out of his arm.
Yeah.
Yes, it sounds silly, but they do a really good job of creating this story and throwing in these films to fit the story. And he's interacting with them as if they're real people in town. I don't know if a movie has ever done this. You brought up Last Action Hero, not the same thing, because they're not bringing in other movies that have already been done all the way around. He's just kind of the kid's living inside a movie.
The only thing I can think of that's kind of similar would be all this, like the flashbacky kind of stuff they did with Tom Hanks in Forrest Gump, where they put him into like real news footage.
That has to be the closest thing. You're right. But this, I got to give it to Carl Reiner and see. I don't know why this movie didn't become a bigger thing. Maybe it just didn't catch on.
That's really amazing.
And the sets are fantastic, and the way they get these people in there, and all of these actors that I named are credited in the credits as well. So anyway, I highly recommend it. If you're a film nerd,
cool,
fascinating. I'm keeping that movie. Just saying. Anyway,
I just ordered it on Amazon while you were talking.
Cool, awesome, love that. I'll pity the fool. Rocky 3, guys. Rocky 3 is the next film we're talking about. Clubber Lang wants to become the title guy. Come on. He's tired of Rocky sitting on his laurels and his big fat money, supposedly beating up on easy opponents, calls him out, insults him and his wife in front of him, gets his ass kicked. Apollo Creed comes to help out. Rocky has to do the thing where he goes somewhere and he works in the inner city and he has to learn how to fight again, comes back, beats up on him. You know the story. Eye of the Tiger. I'll be honest with you guys. This was the first Rocky film I remember seeing in its entirety, and also the first one I saw in the theater. This was the movie that introduced me into Rocky and Survivor. Eye of the Tiger. Lacey, thoughts on Rocky 3?
I've never seen a Rocky movie.
All right, Kyle.
I haven't, but I will say this. When I lived in Los Angeles, I worked in the 22-story building that was across the street from Mr. T's gym. And I didn't smoke, but as per like law or whatever, I got 2 15-minute smoke breaks from this company. And so I would go down and just sit outside just to get a little sun every day, twice a day. And he was kind of like always there, but nice, Mr. T, nicest guy.
Okay.
Absolutely just a sweetheart. He was like taking public transportation. He was all about like being green and like doing stuff. And like anybody who walked up to him, he was just like,
cool.
Would take a picture or talk to anybody. He was just really, really, really sweet guy.
I need you, Lacey, to go back in time, watch this movie in the theater, come back to that time, and then get a selfie with him.
I mean, I have not perfected my time machine efforts as of yet, but I am working on them.
All right. Hot tub time machine. Just saying. Kyle, Clubber Lang, Mr. T, wasn't the only actor that had his major feature length film, I guess, first big appearance. Someone else did.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to him in a minute. I have a very hot take about this movie.
Oh, please do. Give it to me. Give it to me.
The best Rocky film ever.
Interesting. Why?
I think it's the most balanced. I think it's the most overall best written story. You look at the first Rocky and the second Rocky, there's some points in that where it's nap time is on.
Yep.
Or as the, a certain break is there's lots of places for that. This film.
You mean to go get popcorn and take a pee. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This film from start to finish, it just pulls you in. And Stallone is great in it, but Mr. T is so charismatic as Clubber Lang. And you want to see him get beat down, but you see where he's coming from. You add into the fact that at the beginning of this film, we get really, the world is truly introduced to the immortal Hulk Hogan at the beginning of this film as Thunderlips. And just seeing the physical difference between Hulk Hogan and Sylvester Stallone is still to this day so mind-blowing. And I know Stallone has talked about the scene where he kind of slams Thunderlips. He actually had to have Hogan kind of jump and into his arms so he could complete the slam because he couldn't physically lift Hulk Hogan. But this movie, it's got so many powerful moments in it, whether you're talking about the revelation of that Mickey tells him about all these guys that he's kind of throwing him up against that weren't really top fighters. You have Mickey's death. You have Mr. T just being so powerful in this film and just scene stealing and chewing up every scene he's in. I mean, this is the height of him. And you go from this to the A-Team. He does WrestleMania with Hulk Hogan. It's Mr. T's world and we're all living in it. The amazing training sequence with Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed, everything that goes with that, to, of course, the classic ending of this movie, to where we get them about to have the fight that nobody's there to see, and we still don't necessarily. We didn't find out for decades who actually ended up winning that fight, and you can still bring it into question.
You're talking about the famous freeze scene when you got Rocky and Apollo getting ready to fight. Yeah. Great scene.
Spoiler alert for those of you who may not have seen it. It's been out for a while now. They do answer this in one of the new Creed films.
Interesting. Okay. Well, a little bit of trivia.
I bought the Creed films and then realized that I needed to go back and watch the other ones, and so I actually bought the Rocky box set, and I have Creed 1 and 2. I'm a completist, so I have to watch the originals before I continue.
That's going to be a fun.
It'll happen.
I envy that. Well,
the Creed films are phenomenal. I just got to throw that in there.
Cool.
According to an interview given by Mr. T, he attended the movie's premiere with his mother. During the scene where he yells lurid remarks to Adrian, his mother turned to him and said, "I did not raise you to talk to a lady like that," and she stormed out of the theater. Carl Weathers this is his favorite film of the Rocky saga because he thinks Apollo Creed is humanized so well in it. Morgan Freeman auditioned for the role of Clubber Lang, by the way. So yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Lacey.
You gotta love how I love it when boxing movies or fighting movies, there's a thin line between whether or not they're just gonna fight or whether they're gonna make out. And it's just, I keep looking at this poster and I'm like, yeah, they're about to make out. It's funny to me. I'll be over here. Never mind.
Before settling on the film's signature song, Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, Sylvester Stallone wanted to use the already hit song Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. The song spent 6 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and was the number 2 single of 1982. Of course, that's Eye of the Tiger. I tell you, if you want to get pumped up for something, if you want to oh man, I really got to get around to vacuuming that front room, you put this song on and you are ready to do it.
Interesting thing about Eye of the Tiger, Hulk Hogan used that as his theme music up until I want to say 84 when he switched to Rick Derringer's Real American, and that became kind of his iconic theme music for his career.
It's also a big song for Supernatural fans, and if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. All right, Lacey, this one's on you. We were going to cut it on the cutting room floor, but you wanted to save it. And that is The Escape Artist. Francis Ford Coppola presents a new motion picture from the creator of The Black Stallion. The Escape Artist, the remarkable story of an unusual boy who takes on the world and wins. So, Raul Julia is in it, Griffin O'Neill, Desi Arnaz, Terry Garr. Shot in 1980, not released until 1982. So, tell us about The Escape Artist.
Okay, so I did find a copy on DVD, and I went back and watched it, and I hadn't seen it in, 40 years. I remembered it being kind of like a one of those kind of kids scamper around and do funny, weird stuff movies, but it actually turned out it was a fairly dramatic effort. This is Griffin O'Neill, who's Ryan O'Neill's son. Tatum O'Neill's brother. This is one of the very few films that he did. He stopped doing the Hollywood thing after a minute because there was a big dispute in the family and issues and whatever. The movie itself Desi Arnaz was actually credited with his full name, which is Desidero, which I did not know until I saw this film. This is one of his later films. He played, he has like the shock of white hair. It was actually really well done. It's about a kid who's a magician. He gets that from his father, who's since passed, and he uses his pickpocketing / magician magical kind of sleight of hand stuff to get involved with some people that he might not should be involved with. But he uses his powers for good, and he gets people who deserve it put away.
How is he? Is he a good actor for this lead role?
I was the only other thing that I'd seen that he had been in was The Wraith.
Who was he in The Wraith?
I don't remember the name of the character. The group of the five guys. Like he was one of the guys.
Okay, gotcha.
He was Kevin. He was Augie in The Wraith.
Augie. Okay, wow. Okay, good. Well, that's cool. Well, yeah. I just want to mention real quick, Lacey, that
sure.
The poster, and if you're watching on YouTube, it's really cool. You can see him like he's in an underwater like magician's cage, and he's chained to this weight, and it's a really cool poster. And so I'm glad that we're talking about it. Any other final comments about it?
That scene was very dangerous to do because he really did the trick, and he was like 10 at the time or 11 at the time or whatever, and so they had to have like special. There's like a bunch of, if you look it up, you can kind of go online and find stuff, but there's some trivia about that particular thing because back in the day there weren't as many child labor laws, we'll just say.
Understood. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. But it was a good watch. I would recommend it to people. It's an interesting.
I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. I have not searched for it, but I'd be curious to find that out. But you said you found it on DVD though, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't expensive. It was like $8, $9, something like that.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Next we have, guys, we're going into June now. June 1st, Attack Force Z. A group of Australian commandos launch a secret mission against Japanese forces in World War II. Directed by Tim Burstall, of course, stars John Philip Law, Mel Gibson, and Sam Neill. And Chris Hayward prepared for his part by training with the commandos in Sydney, Australia. This movie performed badly at the box office in Australia when in theatrical release after it opened in Melbourne in June 1982. After its poor run in theaters, however, it was released theatrically everywhere else in Australia. However, it found more popularity upon video cassette release in Australia on Roadshow Home Video. And I had seen this partly because our friend of the network, host of Lethal Mullet, our 1980s, 90s, and beyond action film, Adam O'Brien, told me about this. And of course, it's an early Mel Gibson film about a true story. And it doesn't very necessarily end well for a lot of the guys in this, but it is a really gritty film. And I've been finding, because, when I was watching war films as a kid, it was mostly American films, Americans being in World War, and you didn't really get a lot of the other worlds, the Allies, and there's a lot of really good Australian war films, and this was one of them. I really liked it. So, Kyle, did you see this?
It's been a while since I've seen this. Remind me, Kevin, was this one of the movies that Mel Gibson did where they had to redub him because his accent was still so heavy that he was almost near impossible to understand?
No, that was a Mad Max film that they
the first Mad Max.
Yeah.
But I like I said, it's been years since I've seen this film, and actually a little bit of our Adam O'Brien recommendation to hunt it down. But yeah, very much like the Couch Potato Theater we did recently. Who Dares Wins. Kind of that same feel to it as far as getting a different perspective of war from another country, and I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, the movie features Z Special Force, aka Z Special Unit, the Services Reconnaissance Department, the SRD. The outfit was an Allied Special Forces World War II Special Reconnaissance and Sabotage Unit, which was also the subject of John McCallum and Lee Robinson's next film, The Highest Honor, 1982, aka The Southern Cross. Or Heroes of Crete. Z-Force went on missions behind Japanese enemy lines in Southeast Asia. The unit was comprised mainly of Australians, but also included soldiers from New Zealand, Britain, Timor, and Indonesia. So, Lacey? See it?
I do remember seeing this. I remember seeing this and Gallipoli and then Force 10 from Navarone, like all kind of right at the same time. This is the World War II one, right? Because I think
Yes.
Gallipoli was the World War One.
Yes.
Right, so he did kind of those two back to back.
Yeah.
As far as war movies go, good film. Not
Gotcha.
really my genre in particular. I don't like to watch people kill each other. That's not really my thing. But yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right.
Cool.
Next one, I know Lacey's a fan of here. And I was kind of curious about this film. And this is Hanky Panky. Came out June 4th, starring Gene Wilder and his wife, Gilda Radner. And what's really funny is Gene Wilder's name is Michael Jordan. Completely innocent man, Michael Jordan, and this is in 1981 when they're filming it, is drawn into a web of government secrets when a girl carrying a mysterious package gets into a taxi with him. When she's later murdered, Michael becomes the chief suspect and goes on the run. Directed by Sidney Poitier. Lacey, give me a minute on Hanky Panky.
Okay, I saw this long after it came out, I believe, but I saw it in a double feature with Foul Play.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so it was really fun to watch Chevy Chase and kind of juxtapose him with Gene Wilder. It was just an interesting kind of, it was a really, really fun double feature. Gene Wilder is one of my very, very favorite people. And when he works with either Richard Pryor or Gilda Radner, they can do no wrong. Absolutely hilarious. Lots of kind of like on the nose jokes that worked back then, but I don't think it would work as well now.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I watched it just for the first time. I thought it was about 20 minutes too long. There were some parts that were kind of dragging out, but I did like the moments. I love Gene Wilder. I really do. And I love seeing him in a film with Gilda, his wife. For me, it wasn't a great movie. I don't know if I'll be rewatching it again, but there was moments that I did find entertaining. But I got to tell you, his tailor is awesome. He looks really good in that suit. He fills a suit out really well. And I love that like early 80s, really nice pin suit, New York looking thing. And he was looking really good. And there was some funny moments. And, you know, he kind of does this string of films where they have to go on the run, or they're on a trip, on a train, or whatever it is. Of course, you know, with Richard Pryor that he did a lot of work with too. Yes, which was the one I saw all the time because it was playing all the time. But I did enjoy this movie. I don't know if I will keep watching it though. Kyle, did you see Hanky Panky?
I have not seen Hanky Panky, but I have heard the stories about it. Gilda was kind of a last minute addition to this film because it was originally written to team up Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder again, and Richard Pryor backed out. A lot of people suspect he had just done Stir Crazy with Gene Wilder and wasn't ready to become part of a comedy team like that, per se. And he was kind of worried about getting typecast with Gene Wilder all the time.
And I did want to clarify, it was his soon-to-be wife, because not that they weren't married at the time, because at the time, Gilda Radner was married to G.E. Smith, who was the longtime music, I guess, guy he was the one that had the band at Saturday Night Live for like the longest time. Very good musician, and they were married, and then that fell through, and then later on Gilda and Gene got married. A charming film, I will say that. I'm glad I finally saw it, and I'd be honest with you, it just really made me miss those two. They died way too young. I'm sorry, Gilda died way too young, and I just wish I could have seen more of Gene Wilder, especially in the 90s. I didn't see enough of him. I really like him. So. All right, guys, next film scared the crap out of us. Poltergeist. Family's home is haunted by a host of demonic ghosts. A young family are visited by a ghost at their home. The first of ghosts appears friendly. Blah, 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 blah. Crap goes really, really bad. And there's zombies in the pool and, you know, meatloaf blowing up. And I saw this in the theater, I think once or twice later on. I have not revisited. It still creeps me out. But I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not a superstitious guy. I don't want to watch this movie because of apparently the curse that this film has from a couple of the people that were in this film. Unfortunately, Dominic Dunn was murdered later on by her ex-boyfriend, and unfortunately, young actor Heather O'Rourke had a weird what was it?
TSS.
Something with her stomach, I think it was, right, Lacey?
It was toxic shock. Yeah.
Yeah, died way too young. And there's some other weird things going on this, but it was Steven Spielberg was a writer. Toby Hooper directed it, starring Joe Beth Williams, Heather O'Rourke, Craig T. Nelson, Dominic Dunn, Zelda Rubinstein. I know this is a horror classic, but it kind of went mainstream, and it was a big deal that Steven Spielberg was part of this as well. I'm fine never revisiting it. Kyle, your thoughts?
I'm like you. This movie scared the living daylights out of me. This was a very powerful film. I haven't revisited this film in a good while. I actually watched this probably too young. This was a night my older sister rented this from the video store, and that my dad was watching, my mom was watching, she was watching it. I kind of started watching it, truthfully though, I've got to say this. The thing about this movie that is so fascinating is the bizarre curse / history of this film, because nobody got out of this film except maybe for Spielberg unscathed. They've had something strange happen to them in their lives within a period of this film ending. There was some stuff that happened to Craig T. Nelson, Joe Beth Williams had some things, and then you add in Toby Hooper, who Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and just his place he's got a very interesting place in Hollywood history. Let's just put it that way. But and then of course there's the tragedy of Heather O'Rourke and Dominic Dunn. And of course too, let's remember it was almost Drew Barrymore in this role instead of E.T.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore was considered for the role of Carol Ann, but director Steven Spielberg wanted someone more angelic. But because of her audition, she landed the part as Gertie in E.T. Lacey, seen this film?
I saw the trailer for this film. I don't know that I made it through the trailer for this. I remember vividly, if this trailer came on, I would leave the room. I to this day, I can't watch creepy things with children, like creepy kids.
Yeah, not my thing either. I hear you.
Scarier than anything out there. You can do a chainsaw or a demon. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm out too.
Kids, nope, can't do it. Also, I think that there's one thing that we just haven't mentioned, and that's that a lot of people attributed the curse to the fact that they used real human skeletons because it was cheaper than like creating skeletons. So they actually like got a bunch of human bones from, somewhere.
Some science lab or something.
Where you can just, people who have donated their bodies to science or whatever, and they used people. But that's why a lot of people attributed that to like the curse of whatever situation is. But yeah,
all right, I'm getting creeped out already talking about it. Let's go ahead and move on.
The best thing about that movie though is Zelda, because I loved her in Teen Witch. Go ahead.
Good point. Good call out. That made me feel better. Thank you.
Can we do have to say that one of the most iconic moments in movie history in this film.
Okay.
Yeah, let's leave it at that. Don't creep me out anymore. I know what you're talking about.
Don't say the line. Don't say the line.
Don't say it. We're moving next film. Moving next film. Okay.
Look.
Come on.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. With the assistance of the Enterprise crew, Admiral Kirk must stop an old nemesis, Khan, from using a life-generating Genesis device as the ultimate weapon. Of course, directors Nicholas Meyer. And this, of course, comes off from the famous TOS episode, the original series Space Seed. Ricardo Montalban, welcome to Fantasy Island. Not! Gets some revenge. Tries to, anyway. This was the movie for me that brought me into Star Trek. I'll be honest with you. Saw the original one, motion picture, at the drive-in, fell asleep. But this was the film that did it. And one of probably, by most fans, Star Trek fans is mostly I'm targeting here, says this is the best of the original series cast. Lacey, are you a Star Trek fan? Okay. Your thoughts on Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan?
While I love all of the Star Trek films for different reasons, I think that there are people who say that the even numbers are always the best ones.
Right.
I did love this one. I was not a huge fan of the ear. Like like
Yeah.
The SETI eel.
Dude,
If I
I
remember
stuck
correctly, yes.
earmuffs on. I remember this vividly, like putting earmuffs on after I saw that movie. I was like, nope, nope. The one thing this movie teaches us, probably always have your make sure that someone knows about your last wishes. That's all I'm saying.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, your thoughts?
The
Star
second
Trek 2.
movie never would have had to happen. I'm just saying.
Wrath of Khan, Kyle.
Like you, this is my introduction to Star Trek. I was a little too young for the original picture when it hit. As far as that goes, even now I find it as a good nap movie at times. But no, Wrath of Khan was my introduction, and obviously, what an introduction with the powerful moments that happened at the end of this film, and it had me in the theater for Star Trek 3 as soon as I could get a ticket. But yeah, very good Star Trek film. I'm not going to say it's the best of the original crew, though.
I want to talk about that. I got a hot take, but I did want to tell you real quick, Lacey.
Yes.
The close-up of the SETI eels entering and exiting Chekhov's ear were done using a huge rubber replica of Walter Koenig's ear. One morning, the effects crew discovered the art department had left a true-to-scale Q-tip next to the giant ear. I thought that was funny. Okay, guys.
Wait, really quick, can we also just say like how amazing shape Ricardo Montalban was in? He was, 62 when he made that movie? Like
there was rumors about that. There was rumors about that wasn't real.
Yeah.
Really? So it was like like they airbrushed him or something?
Something.
Okay.
Don't know for sure.
Well, whoever is responsible, whether it's the makeup artist or whether it's him, congratulations, because it looked good. I mean, it was impressive.
All right. I got a hot take about this film.
Okay.
I love this film. For the longest time, it was my favorite Star Trek, I'm just going to say original series film. Some people will say it is the best. I'm not going to go that far. But of the original cast, this is probably the one that's favored the most. It kind of saved Star Trek in a way as well. And Ricardo Montalban is fantastic. However, about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, became my favorite. And I have many reasons for it. I'm not going to go into all of those. I saw this film about, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago at a famous theater in Atlanta. Joel Hodgins from Mystery Science 3000. Is that his name, Kyle?
I believe so. Mystery Science Theater 3000. Yeah.
He hosted a special kind of riff tracks where you would pay a ticket, you'd go see a movie, and they decided to target good films just to kind of see what happened. I'm not going to say that it ruined Star Trek 2 for me, but there's a certain scene with Chekhov that I will never look at the same again. It's the one where he's laying still and he's not doing anything, but there's a very serious scene in front of him and he's kind of just laying back there. But I got to tell you, after watching this recently several times and trying to figure out why I like Star Trek 6 better than this one, I come to the reason why. I'm beginning to feel that this movie's not overrated, but approaching that, because I don't think enough people really pay attention to the reasons why Star Trek 6 is really good, in my opinion, and is a better film than this. And my biggest pet peeve with this film, and it took me about 20 years to kind of realize there was something wrong with this film for me. And some people say it's the reason why it's so good. For me, I say it's the reason why it's holding it back. Khan and Kirk are never together. They don't share the same freaking stage together. You need to put those actors together. And I get the whole cat and mouse thing with the ships and stuff like that, but they should have shared a scene together. And this hits home with me because that is the biggest problem that the Star Wars sequels did not do with its original cast members. Kyle, you had thoughts about this as well.
First of all, I completely echo your sentiments about Undiscovered Country, because I think the thing with Undiscovered Country is it's so intelligently written and you had a little bit of incorporation of Next Generation in it at that time as well, with some of the actors. You had a couple actors kind of making appearances as other characters in that film, and it's such a strong story. And I'll even go a step further. As good as Wrath of Khan is, I think Star Trek 4 is even slightly better than Wrath of Khan, because I think Star Trek 4 has more universal appeal to it. I think you can use Star Trek 4 to bring in more people who into Star Trek than you can with Wrath of Khan, because I think with Wrath of Khan, there's questions about the history between Khan and Kirk, and let's not forget it's interesting because you get a trilogy series that's the second, third, and fourth film of a franchise, not the first, second, third. Wrath of Khan is the start of a trilogy. And I agree with Kevin. There should have been a moment between Kirk and Khan, whether it was Kirk beaming onto that ship and he comes across Khan and they have some final words.
He should have been on the planet instead of Chekhov. That's where he should have been. But anyway, yeah.
But that wouldn't have given Chekhov 10 minutes of screen time. That's kind of what Chekhov did in that movie.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
But
lost opportunity.
I think I agree with Kevin. I think this is a great film. Don't get me wrong, but I think this film lives more off of its reputation now than the quality of film it is.
I want to mention that real quick because we got to keep moving here, guys. But I felt there was a lot of pressure among hardcore Star Trek fans that pounded in your face that this had to be the best Star Trek, and if you didn't agree, you were looked negatively upon. Just saying, there was that pressure there. And I think now, as we've gotten older and we've looked back and done everything, I know people that like Star Trek 5 better than this film. Just saying, it's out there. But that's my thoughts on this. Okay, guys, we got to move on here. We got a lot of stuff to get to. E.T., biggest blockbuster that year, changed everything. Might have been the first friendly alien as well. I remember seeing this in the theater many, many times. I remember showing my daughter Camille this movie the first time. She thought it was the grossest thing ever, grossest alien. But then as time went on, she thought it was the cutest alien ever at the end of the film. And it took me 20 years to figure out that we are watching it through a kid's eye, because you don't see Mr. Keyes till later. And the only adult's face you really see is the mom. Fascinating. Really well done. I'm not going to go on too much on it, though. But, Lacey, I want your thoughts on E.T.
Well, didn't Spielberg say that he specifically angled the cameras lower so that you could everything was from a kid's perspective? Because E.T. was his height, and then Gertie, and then Elliot. So just the height of the camera was adjusted. Isn't this how Melissa Matheson and Harrison Ford met, right? They met through Steven Spielberg because of this film?
I
think so, because there was a cut scene that Harrison Ford was in that was taken out. Yeah, I think so.
So that's
the movie.
Cool. Love the movie. Super sad. I've never ever had geraniums in my home since then. I just can't have the little tiny yellow flower. They just make me sad. Yeah. But yeah, my favorite thing is the wall of stuffed animals, and then him hiding in the wall.
Yes,
of stuffed animals.
Classic scene. Yeah,
I think this movie single-handedly created the Reese's franchise and put them on their way. Reese's Pieces were such a big deal. I remember there being a deal when you bought your ticket, you could get $1 off of your Reese's Pieces at the concession stand.
E.T.'s face was modeled after poet Carl Sandburg and Albert Einstein and a pug dog. Kyle, your thoughts on E.T.?
That's upsetting.
First of all, anybody who tells you they never cried at E.T. is lying through their teeth.
Yes.
This movie is a perfect film. This movie is a perfect film because it might truly be in a fashion the apex for Steven Spielberg, because this is a film that anybody can watch and love. This is obviously the classic scene of Elliot with E.T. on the bike flying in front of the moon is classic. Eminem's making the biggest mistake in marketing history.
Yep.
And just so many moments that you could go on and on. This movie, I'm going to say it right now. This movie will be a couch potato theater movie because there's too much to go into for this film that you don't have enough time here in Time Warp. This movie is magic, and this film is nothing but magic. One of the greatest alien creations ever, and just so many moments. We're gonna have a CPT on this, I promise. We're gonna dive deeper into ET, but yeah, as far as I'm concerned, there's a reason why this film is timeless. It's still considered one of the greatest movies ever, and it ruled 1982.
And I believe it's in limited release right now as we're speaking, in certain theaters. So yeah, if you got a chance to see it, make sure you do. So yeah.
Speak and Spell, also a great beneficiary of marketing in this film.
Lacey.
And shout out to Deborah Winger as the voice of E.T.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Most of the full body puppetry was performed by a 2-foot, 10-inch tall stuntman, but the scenes in the kitchen were done by using a 12-year-old boy who was born without legs, but was an expert on walking on his hands. It's interesting. All right, guys, we have mentioned it, but we're not going to talk about it because we did a CPT of Grease 2. Grease 2 is so much fun. Lacey, you were on there, of course, with my wife and our good friend Jennifer. Yeah, there you go. I also got a copy. I'm just going to say real quick, the movie surprised me and I enjoyed it. Kyle, you got a few seconds on Grease 2?
Yeah, I just want to hit a few points. Michelle Pfeiffer, absolutely gorgeous in this film.
Hot.
While not as good as the original movie, one of the all-time great cable replay movies. This movie was played so much on cable, and I think that's where it built its cult following from it. It's very fun. It's not iconic like the original Grease, but I think it definitely has its place in the culture. And I anybody who says that this is a horrible movie has no sense to them, and just not any concept of fun. And Grease 2 is fun and enjoyable.
Lacey, you laughed at me. Why?
I didn't laugh at anybody. I am one of the people who thinks that this is better than the original.
We talked about that.
This movie. Hashtag better than the original. That's all I'll say.
Go listen to Couch Potato Theater on the Fandom Podcast Network, and we also have the video.
And you'll see me in my lovely Rydell High School t-shirt.
Yeah, check it out. Check it out. All right, guys, next film is Firefox. Clint Eastwood. A pilot is sent to the Soviet Union on a mission to steal a prototype jet fighter that can be partially controlled by a neural link. Directed by Clint Eastwood, starring Clint Eastwood and Freddie Jones and David Huffman. I've got the DVD right here. I also have the Laserdisc. I got to tell you guys, movie's too long. Just going to put it out there. I actually enjoyed the first half more than the second half. I love the getting into Russia and the whole Cold War and the spy espionage part. The getting to the ship was great. There were some great scenes, especially when he has to refuel, and there's the whole landing on the ice and the submarine. But I thought that whole part dragged out a little bit too long, but I still enjoyed it. Didn't see it all the way through, but I finally did. Kyle, thoughts on Firefox?
Okay, first of all, Kevin, you will appreciate this. This is a movie about Clint Eastwood stealing the Night Raven for Cobra.
Yes, thank you.
But seriously, I agree with you. This movie is one of those films that if it would have been edited about 20 minutes out of this film, it becomes a very tight, really good film. There's a couple points in this movie where it's just a little bit too slow. You find yourself kind of losing interest, and then something happens and it picks up. I love the dogfight at the end between the two versions of Firefox. But yeah, this is one of the more interesting movies in Clint Eastwood's filmography because you aren't quite sure how to place it. Is it an action film? Is it a spy thriller? Yeah. Is it international espionage? There's a bit of everything in this. It doesn't quite really figure out what it wants to be.
The Russian pilot's wearing this kind of weird, like orange jumpsuit, and it looks like it's something that the rebel pilots or World War Hood would be wearing from Empire Strikes Back, which a lot of the actors, there's a lot of Star Wars actors in this film from Empire Strikes Back. I'm just saying they might have shared a costume designer. Lacey, your thoughts?
Kevin, just real quick, I want to say orange is the new black.
Yeah. Lacey.
Well, my thoughts on that would be that the pilots go down so often that it's like the black box is actually orange. It's so they can find their pilots.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I don't know. This was one of those things. Like I said, I was 9. This is not something I would have seen in the theater. I do remember seeing it probably when I was 13, 14, somewhere in there. A few years later, maybe on cable. But it feels like I know I've seen it. I know I have seen it 100%. But it feels.
I'd be curious. I would be curious to. I would really like to get your opinion, especially the behind the Cold War and espionage stuff, because there's some really good stuff in there.
Right, but that's what I was gonna say. There was like this time frame, the next like 3 to 5 years, right here. Like everything that had a plane or a military something, it was all about the Cold War. It was all about Russia, and so I remember. I know I've seen it.
Okay,
I just
see it again.
I might take a look.
Check it out. All right, guys, next we've got Blade Runner.
I'm the only person on the planet that thought that this was boring. Go ahead.
You're not alone, and there's people out there that do. I love it for obvious reasons. And I think, did we do a Couch Potato Theater on this, Kyle?
I think way back in the day. I don't even know if it's in circulation anymore because of other things that were going on at that time. I just gotta say, Kevin, this is a I love this movie too, but I got to ask you, obviously it was swallowed up by the ET, another film swallowed up by the ET phenomenon, but has this film been hurt over the years because of all the different cuts that Ridley Scott has had released of this film?
God, yes. Oh my God. Yeah. And I'm just going to say on the record, Ridley Scott, I love, and I have a love-hate relationship with him, especially lately. It's been hate because of his Alien films. And I loved the original film with the voiceover by Harrison Ford, and I like the fact that you didn't know for sure if he was a replicant and he fell in love with a replicant. I don't need to know that he was one or whatever. In my head canon, he is not, and I will only watch the original theatrical version, which I love this Blu-ray set that included it, as well as the other crap ones. Anyway, my thoughts. Hot take.
Okay, I was like 14 or 15 when somebody was like, we got to watch Blade Runner. And so we went and got it from the video store or whatever, get up from Blockbuster. We're sitting there, and like 10 or 15 minutes into it, I was like, dude, y'all, he's gonna end up being one of the things, right? He's like one of the replicant things, right? And everybody just kind of went.
I'm just gonna say this. I find it more fascinating that he's human and he falls in love with a robot. Not the fact that he's also a robot and falls in another. I find that more challenging and more interesting. That's why my headcanon goes that way. I don't care if I'm wrong. Did want to give a shout out to Rutger Hauer. He was fantastic in this film.
Well, my thing was that I was half right and half wrong, because depending on which cut you watch. So I'm sitting there and you know, everybody was like, and then, and it was just, it didn't do it for me.
Gotcha. Well, that's all right. You're not alone. Yeah. All right, guys. Next film we're not going to talk about, because we did a Couch Potato Theater of it just recently. Our first ever remash. Woo woo. That is Megaforce. Go check it out on the Fandom Podcast Network. Kyle, you and I got together again with Davis Grayson and covered probably one of our favorite movies of all time, and probably the best G.I. Joe film we ever got as well. Go check out the Fandom Podcast Network.
Just a little spoiler coming up. These Not Words is also going to reflect. There's more remashes coming with Couch Potato Theater. I have a good feeling on that.
It's true. Lacey, did you ever see Megaforce?
I did. Give us
a quick little thing on it.
Barry Bostwick in a headband. Done. Awesome.
Nice.
Love it. Also, fantastic poster. Like, of the time, but definitely a fantastic.
I know, right? It is.
Yeah. The artwork is fantastic. Yeah.
I have one quick question for you, Lacey.
Me,
do you love them in red, or do you love them in red, or do you love them in blue?
I abstain.
All right, moving along, guys. Next, we have The Thing.
Can I ask a question about The Thing?
Yeah, let me just give a little thing about it first. Get it? See what I did there? Give a little thing about it. Got it?
There's a lot of things going on around here.
John Carpenter, director, right off the tails of Escape from New York, with his star Kurt Russell, who is in this film, co-starring Wilford Brimley and Keith David. Research team in Antarctica is hunted by a shape-shifting alien that assumes the appearance of its victims. This movie's scary, guys, but boy, I just finished watching it again. I actually started watching it with the commentary because I thought it would be less scary. But then I was like, God, I got to hear what they're saying. I got to get into it. So I turned off the commentary, and man, the special effects of just working with your hands, no CG, practical effects was amazing in this film for the time. Lacey, what is your question about The Thing?
Okay, there's only been one remake, correct?
No.
Was there another remake? Was there one in like 3 or 4 years, within 3 or 4 years of the 1982 version?
I think this was a remake of something earlier, if I remember correctly.
Okay,
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And then hold on. Then they did a remake recently.
Right, with Mary Catherine Winstead Mary Elizabeth. Yeah. Okay, so this is the second one.
Yes, I think so. Kyle.
Okay, I can actually clarify this. This was a remake of a film. I think it was like It Came from Another Planet or something like along those lines. The version of The Thing that came out with Mary Elizabeth Winstead was actually a prequel film. It ends supposedly right as she's coming.
Okay.
Good to know.
Right.
Good to know, Kyle.
The first time I saw this was after I watched. There was an X-Files episode that was very similar, where they're in the Arctic and there was a thing that was going from person to person, and I just really I loved the episode of X-Files, and X-Files wasn't like my favorite show. And
I don't think you'd like this movie.
No, a friend of mine was like, well, you haven't seen The Thing then. If you liked this episode, you got to watch The Thing. And I was like, okay. Loved this movie. Absolutely loved this movie. I'm not a horror person. This movie was fantastic. I love this movie.
Really? I love that. That's great.
Because it is a scientific horror film. Like, it's science, it's aliens. That's fine for me. I don't like slashers and guy coming out of the woods and lots of gore. I want to see something that is potentially like something could happen. Like, wasn't it like 6 weeks ago they just started talking about this thing they found, some sort of thing they found in the ice up in the North Pole or whatever, and everybody was like, they were like,
stay away.
We're like, y'all don't throw it out, please. Put it back. Just put it back.
Let me just say this real quick. The scene that gets me is the reason why I'm afraid to take CPR is when they're trying to bring the guy back to life with the defibrillators, and that thing opens up and pretty much chops those guys' hands off. I'm like, oh my God. Kyle, your thoughts on The Thing?
One of the all-time classic science fiction horror films. John Carpenter is on record saying it's his favorite film he's ever made. The only thing one thing I can say about The Thing too is through experience, never trust what's in the ice. There's just lots of frozen things still up in Alaska that I can't really talk about, guys. I'm sorry, but truthfully, too, for me, the ultimate fear in this is the ending, because you don't know. You don't know. Yeah. Is it one of them, or did they actually kill it? And I think that is such a, to this day, there's been no answer to this. Carpenter hasn't confirmed this. He won't answer this question. None of the cast will. Most of the cast say, we didn't know. We honestly, to this day, truly don't know. But it's practical effects. It's one of the greatest representations of this type of genre film at that time, without question.
The thing that I like about The Thing is you're not sure what the frick the thing is, because it does all these weird little things with legs coming out and deforms the people that it takes over. It's just like
the dog.
It's a masterpiece of just.
Didn't James Gunn say that when he did was it Sliver? No, Slither. Yeah. Didn't he say something about like this was one of his main
probably
or whatever for the beast from Slither? Yeah. Really good.
I forgot how good it was, and all right, guys, that is it for Time Warp 1982 Part 3. May and June, but we do have some quick mentions of movies that made it on the cutting room floor, movies that were like we don't have time for, but we did want to mention. And these movies are The House Where Evil Dwells. Think about a samurai ghost haunting your house. I kind of want to see it. Just gonna throw it out there. This one I couldn't find. I wanted to see Enough is Enough, where Tom Skerritt's tired of all the crime, and he starts a vigilante group, kind of like a fighting back type thing, with Yaphet Kotto in it as well. So yeah, I kind of wanted to see it, but couldn't find it. This weird movie called The Race That Drove Africa Wild, Safari 3000, with Stockard Channing and Christopher Lee, David Carradine. Couldn't find that. This film here, The Mash of Socialized Medicine, Britannia Hospital. Leonard Rossiter, Malcolm McDowell, Brian Pettifer, and Mark Hamill is in this film. You lost me when you said MASH. And this one, author Al Pacino, while facing the stress of his play being produced on Broadway, a playwright deals with having to raise his son, his stepdaughters, and his stepson, co-starring Dylan Cannon and Tuesday Weld. Lacey, quick thought on author?
The best scene in this film is when he's trying to decide if he should go and meet up with this woman, because she calls him and she says, I'm standing on the whatever bridge, and if you don't come in 60 minutes, I'm going to throw myself off. And she's like this dramatic actress, right? And so he hangs the phone, and of course this is back in the day when it's like landlines. So he turns around, he's like, what do I do? What? And his daughter looks at me and she goes, okay, spend the next 59 minutes getting ready, look perfect, and then run as fast as you can to go see her so that it looks like you put time into your efforts. It was just this weird, like 15-year-old thoughts on like how you should look when you try and rescue someone from killing themselves. And it was just this really bizarre. It's the one thing that really stuck out about that movie until I saw it again a million years later. But it's got some good fun comedy to it.
Good to know. All right, guys. Final thoughts on this edition of Time Warp 1982, 40 years later, part 3. Kyle, quick thoughts. Just want to let you know, this is the beginning of the summer movie season.
Yeah. But just what's in here alone is some of the most iconic films of this time period, and one of the greatest films of all time. And it's just in this little segment alone to give you an idea. And yes, we probably have the film that dominated the summer in this, but there's so many other good films that got lost in the tidal wave that was E.T. that for those of you who weren't alive during that period or don't remember it, all of these strong movies in E.T. just blew them out of the water, and it wasn't even close. Kevin, how long was E.T. in the theaters for you? I think it was a good 8 months for me.
Over a year.
Yeah.
And it became like, the highest grossing movie because of that. So yeah. Lacey, your thoughts?
The first time I saw E.T. was at a drive-in theater. It was the first time I'd ever gone to the drive-in. And there was a guy in the very corner. This is back when you had your cars, and then you had like the little spots on the side where you could, sit on the swing set or whatever and watch the, And during the scene where they went over the moon, like after they kind of like angled out, because they go off screen, and this guy would just sit in the back, and like he had like a flashlight, and he would aim it like just off the screen, and everybody would be like, ah! It was kind of a funny little cool thing.
Thoughts on the rest of the films quickly?
Lots of cool stuff, lots of fun stuff, and like probably one of the few horror movies that I really, really enjoyed.
That surprised me. I didn't expect you to like it, but good to know. That's why we do this, E.T., real quick, I did want to mention, this was a great time when you were riding your bike and you wanted to go on an adventure and pretend you were those kids with E.T. And I don't know who else, as you said, Kyle, could lie about not tearing up, especially when you see him like near death at the bottom of that riverbed. It is a tough thing. But I got to tell you, the movies that surprised me the most, Annie, should have seen it. Really glad I did. What's really funny is like sometimes your visits to your local thrift stores know what you're doing. And I was like, man, I need to find a copy of Annie. There was 3 copies of Annie, so I got to pick one. I picked the best one. And also, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. Like this film. If you're a movie nerd, especially of film noir, my dad loved those films. I've learned a lot about those films from that history. And I've seen parts of some of these films because my dad watches them, and I'm always asking him what the film is, what year it is. And I love the concept that this film tried, and I don't think that it gets the credit that it deserves. And Steve Martin was very charming in this. Give it a shot. I highly recommend it. Make sure you check it out.
Very cool.
All right, got this is Time Warp 1982 Part 3. Next time, of course, we'll be hitting July and August, of course. Make sure you check that out. And some of the films that we're going to be discussing are The Secret of, is it Nim? I guess.
The Secret of Nim.
Nim.
Yes.
Tron, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. The Challenge. The World According to Garp. Maybe, we'll see. Zapped, An Officer and a Gentleman. Forced Vengeance. Night Shift. The Last American Virgin. Fast Times at Richmond High. The Beastmaster. Class of 1984. And at the time held the Guinness Book of World Records for most destroyed cars. The Junkman. Let's get into some contact information, guys. Let's find out where you can find us. Please watch this on YouTube and watch this video and subscribe on Fandom Podcast Network's YouTube channel. Audio master feed, fpnet.podbean.com. Our audio podcast on all major podcast platforms. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. My name is Kevin. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me with my Reese's Pieces going to a certain landfill to get a copy of the ET 2600 cartridge to go play that for a little while. You can also find me on Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom.
It's a proven fact, Kyle, that the people had more fun digging that up than actually playing the game. Just letting you know.
Amen. That is. Can I get an amen to that one?
Lacey, thank you so much for coming on again. Looking forward to having you next. And I'm really happy you like the thing. I don't know why that makes me happy. Where can we find you?
I am Lacey Pants in all the places. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the places.
Awesome.
That's me.
Awesome. Great. Well, again, please leave us some reviews on your podcast platforms. Just search Fandom Podcast Network, and please visit our TeePublic store. We've got a lot of great logos like the one I'm wearing here. Time Warp t-shirt. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Lacey. And until next time, we're going to see you in 1982. I'm a poet and didn't even know it. Ha ha!